Okay, yesterday we started learning about Tefillah Sederach, but we discussed whether you can live in Spain, you can't live in Spain, you can live in Egypt, you can't live in Egypt, all the very different things. Okay, now, when a person travels, now the poskim write what is considered traveling, so they say it has to be at least what's called a parsa. A parsa is 4 mil. Now a mil is 2,000 cubits, which is approximately a little bit over 3,000 feet. So parsa, which is 4 mil, is if mil is 2,000 amas, so parsa is 4 times 2,000 is 8,000. So it's 4 times, now, but poskim right, even though today we're not walking, let's say you're driving or flying or whatever. So parsa you go by time. Now in practical halacha, a mil is usually considered 18 minutes. So 18 minutes is a mil. So parsa is 4 times 18 is 72 minutes. So if you're traveling more than 72 minutes, and you're traveling outside of a city where there's no more houses, so you're traveling actually on a way, so then you say what's called Tefillah Sederach. So the custom is usually you wait until that area called the parsa. Now the question is, when do you say Tefillah Sederach when you're flying on a plane? Do you say it on the plane? Do you say before takeoff, after takeoff, when the seatbelt's on, the seatbelt's off, because when do you say it? So there's in Sefer and Hagen, they bring down a letter from the Rebbe that the Rebbe really writes in most airports, again, this depends on the fact. Most airports are out of the city. So anyway, when you're going to the airport, on the way to the airport, you can already say Tefillah Sederach. But many people say it before takeoff, because now you're able, L'chatchila is best to stand. The expression in halacha is, and Alter Rebbe brings it down in Siddur also, Nochen lamedim efshe bekal. If it's easy to stand, you should stand. There are poskim that hold, because Tefillah Sederach begins Yiratzim L'fenecha, and then that's Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei Tefillah. So some poskim like that you should eat something before you start Tefillah Sederach, and then you make an after bracha. So let's say you make a burn nefashos, so you burn Baruch Atah Hashem and then you go straight into Tefillah Sederach, so it's beginning with a bracha also. In other words, Tefillah Sederach itself doesn't demand an opening bracha. Some brachas, it depends where the Chazal, the Ezra made it, and Shekinah Gedela made it up. Certain brachas begin with Baruch, don't end with Baruch. Some brachas end with Baruch, don't begin with Baruch. But there's something called, I'm going off now, bracha smucha lechaverta, a bracha that's next to his friend. They can shmonesi, right? You have Baruch Atah Hashem Hakel HaKadosh, Atochen Ladam Das. So you don't have to give him Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, or Baruch Atah Hashem, because the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Hakel HaKadosh is good for Atochenin. Baruch Atah Hashem Chenin Adoas is good for the next bracha. Hashiven, Slachlon, whatever it is, they're all, so it's called bracha smucha lechaveta. You have that in the morning also, right away when you start saying brachas. You have the bracha sheyatzar, then you have the bracha l'kain mishamash satabi. So why doesn't that bracha have to begin with the baruch? Because he's saying baruch atah Hashem reifi chobasim afli lasais, l'kain mishamash satabi. So it's like it began with the bracha. So some poskim wrote, there's a very interesting story, when the Rebbe B'chal didn't travel too much, because the Rebbe never went anywhere. But he went to camp a few times, Gan Yisrael, New York, and Camp Amunah, the girls' camp. So when the Rebbe was in the car, they stopped. It was right up by the tunnel, and not exactly, I don't remember, it's written already where the Rebbe stopped. The Rebbe got out of the car and said Tefillah Sederach. So one of the Alter Chassidim, I think it was Rav Shmuel Levitin, if I'm not mistaken, offered the Rebbe a fruit to eat something that he should make a bracha after bracha and then go right into Tefillah Sederach. Because many poskim say that's what you really should be doing. And the Rebbe said, Medarf nicht. You don't need it. You don't need it. And whatever the reason is. But the Rebbe stood and he said Tefillah Sederach. That's Stam.
If you drive to Vegas, you need to do the
You say Tefillah Sederach when the problem is nowadays You can drive across America and you're always having houses all over the place. But when you leave the city, and there's a while already, you're leaving the city, so then you could say, huh?
When he went from...
No, it's not leaving the city.
Can't you stay once you go and start traveling from the car?
No, the minig is to say it only after you left the parsa. What?
Why do I eliminate the chance of offline if we got that there?
Why?
He says we don't say Baruch Hashem.
No. You say Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei Tefillah. In our Yom Yom it says that the Rebbe Rashab, if he traveled somewhere, let's say he went for 2 weeks somewhere, so on the day he journeyed, he said Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei Tefillah. But every day after davening, he said Tefillah Saderech, only ending Baruch Atah Shemei Tefillah. Now what happens if a person's traveling on the same day, he makes a few stops, so you don't have to make a new Tefillah Saderech. But what happens, you're driving, let's say, across country, and you're making, you go to sleep or whatever, in an RV or a hotel, whatever. You go to sleep, and then the next morning you wake up, and now you're journeying again. So you make again Tefillah Saderech with the bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei Tefillah. Yeah.
You mentioned before it's 72 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that today you go in a car, sometimes you drive an hour away or maybe 50 miles between two cities. It's not 72 minutes.
No. If you don't...
Time to walk, 72 minutes?
No. If you're driving to a destination 72 minutes away, yeah? So then once you leave the city, you can make already Tefillah Saderech. You don't have to say... You have to leave the city to make Tefillah Saderech. Yeah. But you didn't have to travel the whole parsa yet.
No, but I'm saying, does the trip have to be a 72 minute long trip?
Officially, that's what the Poskim write, that's what you... Because how else you count the parsa?
You can go 72 miles without, or less than 72 minutes.
I know that. Depends how fast it is. Depends traffic time, not traffic time. Sometimes you can go 1 mile in 72 minutes.
But 1 mile is already, what is it, 5 parses? 1 mile is already 5 parses.
5,052.80, right? 5820 or 5280, who knows? Something like that, huh? 5280.
So now my question is the other way around too. If you go somewhere with a mile between one city and the other, it only takes 3 miles to drive, but it takes 72
But you're going, okay, so if you're going on a journey out of the city, but Bachlal, today even, Moshe, you go from here to Santa Barbara. There are a lot of people that say Tefillah Saderech, some people don't. Because the whole way you're going, there's really houses all over the place. You go to Diego, so you can be having houses all along the way. So when you go in the way, again, if you have a doubt whether you should say it, you can just say Baruch Atah Shemei Tefillah. So then you don't have any bracha v'atola. You say Yirasmin Hashem Elokeinu, that you could say, because that's a tefillah. But to make a bracha, Baruch Atah Hashem, so if you're in doubt, you say Baruch Atah Shemei Tefillah. That's all. There was a Yid on Shlichus, a very chsidish Yid on Shlichus, that every day, when he wasn't in New York, when he was on his Shlichus, every day he said Tefillah Saderech, except when he was in New York, because he counted New York home. And everywhere out of New York was traveling. So when he lived 50 years in California, but every day he said Tefillah, except when he was in New York, which was pretty often, by the way. So then he didn't say Tefillah Saderech. But anyway, okay, now you have to, it says in Kids, it says you should say it close to another bracha. Okay, you're supposed to say it standing, you only do it the same day. Okay, then...
if you know you're going to be traveling that far, why wouldn't you say it when you actually start the journey? Aren't you seeking protection for the entire journey, or is it only for the part of the journey when you're in the houses? It says you should start saying it within the first parsa, but you don't want to say it until you're basically outside. That's the minig. You see, the Rebbe did that also. He didn't say right away. When he left New York City, then he said the bracha. That's the minig. You don't say it right away, except if you're flying on a plane, then the custom is you either say it on the most people say it before they take off. Because then you can stand easily, and then, it's not a problem with turbulence or anything like that. Okay, next is like this. So before a person goes on a trip, they should give tzedakah.
Now there's a custom that everybody knows, what's called the shliach mitzvah. Somebody goes on a journey, you give him money to put into a pushka in the city, or you give him money to put in the pushka when he gets back. What is the purpose of that? So the purpose of that is as follows. The Gemara says, Kol hadrachim b'cheskes sakana. All journeys are dangerous. Like we mentioned in the past, Yaakov Avinu did want to send Binyamin because it's Satan mekatrik b'shas sakana, and Kol hadrachim, all the traveling is b'cheskes sakana. Like we know, years ago, you traveled through the midbar, or you traveled through the forest. It was dangerous. So when you give somebody money to put into, so let's say somebody going to New York, yeah? So you give him $1, say put it into a pushka in New York. So basically what you did was, you made him a shliach mitzvah. Made him a shliach to do a mitzvah. And the Gemara says, shluchim mitzvah ein nizakim. Shluchim are doing a mitzvah never get damaged, because the mitzvah protects them. Unless if it's Shasa Sakot, there's a whole discussion in the Poskim about that. But anyway, so when somebody goes on a trip, you give him tzedakah, so then you tell him put in the pushka in New York, let's say, so then you're making him a shliach mitzvah, so what?
I thought it's only if they're not going to get harmed by the fact that they're doing this. It's not that they're suddenly have like a force field around them to protect it from anything.
No, the fact that they're shliach mitzvah, the mitzvah protects them. What do you think it is?
I thought that it's just that they're not going to get harmed by the fact that they're doing a mitzvah. Through the mitzvah, they're not going to be harmed. In a way that they wouldn't.
But they didn't do the mitzvah yet. They're a shliach to do the mitzvah. But the fact that they're doing a mitzvah to put money in the pushka in New York, so the whole time they're going is a mitzvah. So they get protected from that. Secondly, another interesting din, it says, and people used to do this. You have to get to the shus in the gedalim of the city. You go to the rabbis, to the righteous people in the city that should give you a bracha to be successful in your trip. People still do it, by the way. And you should have people accompany you on the way. And in the halacha it says you shouldn't say lech bishalem, you should say lech lishalem. Because David HaMelech told his son Avshalom lech bishalem, and he got hurt. And Yisro told Moshe lech lishalem, and he didn't get hurt. So these are just things that we find in Chazak, in Torah, I mean. And also it says in the Gemara, it also says, in Seita, if you're traveling and you have no accompaniment, so you should learn Torah. Because when you learn Torah, then Torah protects you. Torah is Megino Matzla. It says you should take with you talis and tefillin and tzitzis, and also you should enter the city. This Gemara learns out from Yosef and his brothers. The Gemara in Pesachim says you have to enter a city when it's still light, and you shouldn't leave until it's light. Now you shouldn't be traveling at night. Now that doesn't apply today, because today we have lights. It's not like years ago the robbers came out at night and the animals came out at night. So it's partially dangerous. The Gemara says you should go in when it's light. It's interesting though. There was many years ago. There were summers that in the camps, and this, especially in the three-way, a lot of car accidents would be happening. And the Rebbe then instituted, and it still applies today because the Rebbe said it, and the Rebbe said if you drive, I don't mean in city streets at night, but if you're driving on a highway at night, you should stop every hour for a few minutes. You shouldn't drive more than an hour without stopping, because when you stop, you go out mamish for a minute, it freshens you up that you don't fall asleep at the wheel. So the Rebbe said it was very strong about that many times when he spoke about it years ago, that people, if they're driving at night between cities, you should actually stop every hour for mamish 2 minutes, whatever it is, just to not to get stuck with that. Okay, then it says like this. You shouldn't, this again doesn't apply today, but the Gemara says you shouldn't eat a lot when you're traveling. Because then you'll have to go to the bathroom, whatever, the various different things, you won't be able to protect yourself, the various different things that are going on. Okay, now it says like this. When you're by a host, okay, don't forget, those days didn't have hotels, they had a little bit of inns, but yeah, you went to eat by somebody, You have to make sure that the balabas is careful and kosher, you know, and you have to make sure the shechita is good, and who's the sheichet, and who's the hashkachet is, and you know, there was many times there was a write-up from a lot of Rabbonim and kashrus organizations that people go to functions, but it was a pretty important din that people just don't even think about it today. But you go to a wedding, you go to a bar mitzvah. They write, the kashrus organization, how many people ask, who's the hashkachet? Who's the mashgiach here? Who's catering? Who's hashkachet? People assume it's all kosher. You know, you go to a function, it got to be kosher. So, b'chlal, you should find out whose hashkachet is and things like that to make sure it's a proper hashkachet, proper, you know, you go to, people eat out in a restaurant. And then you ask them, whose hashkachet is the restaurant? I don't know. I mean, eating in a restaurant, shouldn't you know whose hashkachet it is? Yeah, no, it's good, I know it's good. But it's like, you go eat somewhere, you should know whose hashkachet it is. What?
Question from yesterday, you know, if you're not allowed, Jews not allowed to own and cook at a trade restaurant, right?
No.
There's no trade. So if you have a store, it's more or less like a restaurant. So if you have 51% kosher and 49% trade, how could that be allowed?
What is the treif that you're selling?
Who knows?
Not talking about real treif. We're talking about things that are not mamish tarfas. You can't have a restaurant that's 51% kosher and 49% treif and say the majority is kosher.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Nobody ever said that you could do that.